What's in a question? Maybe just about everything important. A smart and sharp question should strike up a more engaging conversation. So let's have ourselves a little discussion with a noisy Diane joining us in the studio. Good morning.
I am so sorry.
No.
Good morning.
It's odd because she's the first one literally joining me face to face in the studio, so she has to get situated.
Yes.
All good?
Usually it's all situated because Erica comes before me, but then it's like I have to move around.
It's fun, isn't it?
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope everyone's staying dry.
Right.
The road conditions are getting trickier. I'm getting all these updates on my phone, and it sounds frightening. How am I going to get to my next place of work?
Exactly. I mean, hopefully David got to his work
I'm going to ask after the show. I didn't want to bother him, but I'm sure he got there safe and sound. He's a safe guy.
Right.
Okay. Let's jump into today's question unboxing portion. Our listeners are probably wondering, what was it again?
So question, what troubled you the most during the pandemic?
Everything, Diane.
Everything?
Everything.
Probably, yeah. For me, mostly it was wearing the masks everywhere.
I forgot.
Right.
You know what's really crazy is that you acclimate and then you
Right.
forget.
Yeah.
This is not comfortable. And
Not at all.
A 2-hour live show with a face mask it kind of feels like a slow death. Okay, so moving on. What else?
Slow death, right?
What else?
For me, not being able to meet my friends and families whenever and however I want to, especially when my being able to visit my brother who's living in the States more freely. What about you, Lena? You mentioned a little bit before. What were some difficulties as you went through during the pandemic? You mentioned work-life balance.
Yeah, but I guess I kind of put like a blanket over it because pinpointing what I hated about the pandemic was actually causing a toll. So I just kind of decided, okay, this is the way things are.
Right.
We're going to face mask for a 2-hour live radio show.
Right.
We're going to connect on Zoom and not meet in person. There was a time when Yerika and I were divided by a wall for an entire season of broadcasting.
Me as well.
You're right.
You forgot about me.
No, I forgot about everything. And that's just the convenience of the inside of my brains. Ta-da. Like, I forget things that bothered me rather quickly.
That's a good thing.
It's a survival thing.
Of
but
course.
I think the general tone of antsiness at broadcasting stations, that didn't fare so well because there's so much that can go wrong in a live show. A pandemic is not something I want to be consistently worried about. Okay.
Right. All the listeners who chimed in through our YouTube live, they mentioned a lot of being in quarantine as one of the hardships and difficulties for the pandemic. I think it all relates to one thing, right? Because of the virus, our movement or like not being able to go to places has been restricted. Therefore, that was the most difficult part of the pandemic.
You know what we need? Humans need options.
Exactly.
If it's self-imposed limitations, I don't think it bothers us.
Right.
But when it's an entire society telling you, social distance, face mask, don't go anywhere, suddenly it feels really restrictive and suffocating. Now, can you imagine being a teenager and living through years of it? I mean, this is years of the most critical academic years of your life.
Right.
Social distancing to slow the spread of COVID-19 can be especially hard for teenagers that need kind of that camaraderie and social engagements. They may also feel cut off from their friends and peers.
I mean, they have more energy than us.
I'd assume so.
Yeah, assume so. So they need to go out and move more. But so definitely it's worse for teenagers.
Yeah.
That's according to a recent study. The Korea Youth Work Agency recently finished their survey from April 9th to May 15th by conducting an online survey of about 700 teenagers aged 12 to 19th. That's 5th grade in elementary school and 3rd grade in high school in South Korea.
Okay.
In 17 cities and provinces.
Okay, so it was a pretty thorough set of survey. And what did the result indicate?
Well, to the question about the daily difficulties experienced by COVID-19, and respondents were allowed to give an overlapping response to 3 items. The most common response was physical change, with 14% of them giving this answer, such as weight gain and decreased physical strength.
You're not going outdoors,
Right.
not enough exercise. Okay.
It was followed by an increase in stress, an increase in media use time, and difficulties in communicating with friends, all going over 10%. I mean, these are all related all together, right? Intertwined.
I think so.
Right, because you can't go out. You tend to just concentrate on your phone.
Yeah.
Therefore, the media use time goes up.
Yeah.
And because you don't move a lot, lot and you don't go out a lot, you'll definitely witness a physical
changes,
change.
Right? Weight gain, discomfort. And the thing about stamina is if you don't work at it, even as a teenager, it decreases surprisingly quickly. And it's also stress-inducing to say, again, you're limited to the grounds of your own home at all times with no end in sight. I do wonder, results differ depending on the gender?
Right. The order shifted a little bit. In terms of gender, male teenagers responded in the order of increased stress with 21%, physical changes at 18%, and loneliness at 16% because they spend a lot of time alone. And female teenagers complained of difficulties due to physical changes the most, taking over 24% of the answer, followed by media use time with 22% and increased stress by 20%.
And the results apparently differed according to one's grade or age as well.
Right. Elementary school students said the media time use increased, and middle school students said they had a hard time because of physical changes, and high school students had the most stress. I guess this makes sense because being in the pandemic during your high school days when you're preparing so much for to get into universities and getting ready for the entrance exams. I mean, it's definitely difficult for the high school students for sure.
Even without the pandemic, it's tough, right? I think high school students in South Korea, the odds are stacked up against them. We talked about the infamous college entrance exams, Suneung, every year. Pandemic just makes it so much worse. And we're talking about more dependency on after-school programs that are all online all of a sudden. Is schooling enough during those days? 2 years is a really long time. That's two-thirds of your high school career.
You only get 3 years in high school. And more than half of it is you're strained by the pandemic.
Yeah. Is that fair is a question that was tossed around a lot by parents, teachers, and students alike. What did they say they want to do the most once the pandemic is over? I mean, some social distancing rules have been lifted, right?
Right. So, in a bright light, the things they wanted to do due to COVID-19 but couldn't were answered in the order of spending time with friends by 16%, students giving this answer, visiting museums, art galleries, and movie theaters by 13%, and using multi-use facilities by 12%.
Normal teenager things.
Right. No, all the normal teenagers things. But with the social distancing rules, now they will be able to spend time doing all these three things they wish for, well, but in a cautious manner, of course.
Okay, in a cautious manner, but you're allowed to. Now, I'm sure the answers will be similar if the question were asked to adults, honestly. Surprisingly similar. Go to museums, art galleries, movie theaters. Yeah, that's like my weekend.
Is that what you want to do when the pandemic's over?
Well, actually not during the weekend when there are crowds, but you get the idea, right? I just want to roam freely. That's it. Is there a survey showing what the adults want to do after the pandemic?
There was. Lotte members research platform Lime released the results of a survey conducted from May 20th to 27th for 800 men and women in their 20s and 60s nationwide. And in this survey, as activities are expected to increase after the pandemic, 32% of respondents chose overseas travel, and 31% chose domestic travel. So I guess everyone is so eager to just take a leave and rest away from worries from the pandemic.
I mean, we're seeing the ripple effects. Flight tickets are kind of expensive. Hotels unaffordable. We are so deprived. We just want to travel.
Exactly. The following answers were movie viewings with about 30%, going out to see performances with 20%, having offline dinner parties with another 20%, and doing outdoor exercise with about 19%.
Until outdoor exercise, I completely agreed. Outdoor exercise, it's hot and humid. I don't know where this is coming from.
What about water sports?
I don't like water sports. Despite my upbringing in California, I don't surf. I don't like surfing. Beaches terrify me.
Scuba diving?
No, I'm
scuba diving?
I'm a little scared of water. Not necessarily terrified anymore, but I don't care much for it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I swim with my head propped up above water.
Wait, is that possible?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Like a frog. Imagine
like a frog.
little bit of frog.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
All right, so based on this survey, what did the adults say when they were asked about what will change once the pandemic is over?
So all the things that have taken advantage of the situation brought by the virus for sure. So activities that are expected to decrease when an endemic is declared include less food delivery and packaging with about 24%, non-face-to-face gatherings like Zoom meetings with 23%, drinking at home with about 18%, TV watching and home training with both about 14%.
Home training I've acclimated to. That's actually really fun and effective. I've realized TV video watching, I should do less of. I'm running out of things to watch. That should be a blaring red flag.
Right.
Right?
When you get all the unlimited access to all those fun videos, right?
I thought binge watching would be something that as a grown adult could master.
Right.
No, I have no control.
Yeah, as a human being, I think you would have
zero willpower.
Ever. Right.
That's sad. I'm a grown 30-something-year-old
We're just
woman.
humans.
Yes, I'm just human. We're all hoping for the pandemic to be officially declared over. However, the government recently carefully warned of another possible resurgence this summer. In fact, the numbers are slightly higher this week.
Right. So as the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Europe is on the rise again, the possibility of a summer resurgence in Korea is being raised. According to Our World in data, in Portugal, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases was dropped to 800 at the end of April, surged to 2,000 in mid-May. Other European countries such as Germany, France, Italy, and the UK have also seen an increase in the number of confirmed cases since the beginning of this month. Foreign media analyzed that the resurgence is being spread in European countries due to the spread of mutations of the Omicron variant and the increase in travel during the summer vacation season.
Of course.
Korea, which is still on a declining trend, is not a safe situation from resurgence. But as you mentioned on this headline today, the recent COVID-19 infections has gone up to over 10,000 in 20 days, which is an alarming trend, it seems.
Yeah. Suddenly, it seems like that decline trend is kind of going the other way in a sense.
Right.
So it's a big warning sign, I think, for KDC and the authorities trying to keep this at bay.
Right.
They're pointing to the mutated Omicron variant as one of the reasonings.
Right. As in Europe, the fact that Korea is approaching summer vacation season with Omicron mutations introduced is considered a risk factor for a resurgence.
Okay.
Lee Ki-il, the first general coordinator of the KDCA, emphasized that this summer is an important time for the quarantine authorities as it can become a fuse for another COVID spread across the nation.
Brace yourselves. I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of used to it. Like we're told to be mindful of a possible resurgence, but go about your days too. Surge in summertime was what we had witnessed last year as well because there were just more movement.
Right. Last year, Korea suffered a large-scale COVID-19 outbreak in the summer. This was the so-called fourth wave of COVID-19 triggered by the spread of Delta mutations back then.
But to be fair, Delta was considered to be more contagious and it spread faster and we didn't have third doses readily available.
Right, that's very true.
Okay.
So the fourth epidemic started as the number of new confirmed cases surged from 746 on July 6th last year to over 1,200 on the 7th. The daily number of confirmed cases rose to 3,000 in September and then dropped to 1,000 to 2,000, but rose again to 7,000 in December with the implementation of a gradual daily recovery in November.
Right.
Right. The increase in the amount of travel during the holiday season also had an impact on the fourth wave last year. In July, a group of infection occurred in a multi-use facility with many people, such as department store in Seoul and a resort in Gangwon-do province.
Okay. However, experts are saying that this year would be slightly different. So the predictions are not necessarily completely in line with what happened last year, right? Because, again, the circumstances are a little bit different.
Right.
I think more people are vaccinated to higher dosages this year. However, it's still a warning sign nonetheless.
Right. So last year, a large-scale epidemic occurred while the COVID-19 continued to spread without large-scale immunity being formed. The Omicron pandemic, which started at the end of January, passed its peak in mid-March, generating up to 600,000 confirmed cases per day and turning to a decreasing trend. In the process, the highly vaccination rate and natural infectivity have enabled the public to have high immunity now. So the duration of immunity is estimated to be 3 to 6 months, and the immunity is expected to gradually decline as time passes after vaccination and infection. So these factors may play a role in delaying and reducing the size of the outbreak. So that's why the experts are saying that this year's summer resurgence might be different from from last year's resurgence.
A little bit more manageable. There's lessons learned from last year, protocols in place, readily available vaccines. And again, I think protocol is so important. When people are in a state of panic without an answer quickly, I don't think that does good for society.
Right.
Honestly, yes, the resurgence and the possibility of it is a concern, but we're also told to, take each day by day in stride. Living each day in fear is something that none of us can afford to do. So if you have plans to travel, just stay safe. Diane, I did want to ask you, we're, kind of out of the deep ends of the water. So what do you want to do the most in light of lifted social distancing rules?
For me, definitely travel more.
More than you do already?
More than I do already.
Roam around more than you do already?
Right.
What haven't you hit up in the last year? Because these are with restrictions. Mind you, she was being careful, but she was still making her rounds around the city. That's
very true. I guess then the biggest difference for me would be not wearing masks.
Outdoors.
Outdoors or anywhere.
Oh, do you actually see people lowering their masks? Because I kid you not, in my neighborhood, nobody lowers their masks, even outdoors.
Oh, I've seen, I walk around around my neighborhood. I've seen a lot of people actually doing it, like walking without masks.
Really?
Right. I think it's because of the humidity and the temperature. Like you just can't stand it.
Is your mask getting lighter and lighter too?
Right. Exactly.
A lot of our listeners actually did chime in on today's topic. Apparently, some of our listeners are afraid of water too. See, it's a thing. JK says, I'm scared of water. Well, then we can go outdoors. Go hiking or something like that.
Yeah.
If the face mask is uncomfortable, lower it. I can't. It's not part of protocol, right?
Indoors,
masks.
right. Indoor masks are still mandatory in South Korea. You can lower your mask when you go out.
When you go out in open space. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. So for both teenagers and adults, according to the surveys that Diane has released for us, yes, what we wanted more were just freedom to roam around.
Of course. Time to meet
events.
Right. Meeting friends and family
in person.
Right, in person.
But can you imagine doing Good Morning Seoul without Zoom?
Exactly. That would be very interesting. Like having all the guests over to our studio, that would be very nice.
That was the norm for radio not too long ago. It's funny how quickly we acclimated. Thank you so much, Diane, for a thorough coverage. As always, we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
We have our science and IT news portion coming up with our main writer, June, coming up next.